Hey, welcome to Scratching the Surface. I'm Jarrett Fuller, and this is my podcast about design criticism and practice. On this week's episode, I have a wide-ranging conversation with Martin Lorenz and Lupi Asensio. Martin and Lupi are the founders of 2points.net, a Hamburg-based design studio and publishing house. Their work mixes typography and editorial design, publishing, and graphic design. Martin previously worked as a designer at Hort, and Lupi was the director of the graduate design program at Elisava in Barcelona. Both Martin and Lupi have taught extensively, and we spent a lot of the conversation talking about teaching and their own experiences as both practitioners and educators. The studio, in many ways, feels like it's this kind of ongoing workshop where they are blending education and making and publishing, and they're kind of working through their own theories through their work. They're also both prolific writers and currently working on book projects right now. I'm a big fan of their work and really enjoyed talking to Martin and Lupi about their practice. I feel like so much of their work embodies this idea of the designer as author, where their work looks wildly different from project to project, but their role certainly isn't invisible, and I think you can thread connections through everything that they do. This was a fun conversation. I could have talked to them easily for another hour, so I hope that you enjoy it as well. If you're a fan of the podcast and want to help support it, you can become a member for $5 a month or $50 a year to receive an exclusive monthly newsletter that has additional content and episode previews. The December newsletter will be going out early next week, so if you sign up now, you can get that in your inbox. These memberships really help keep the podcast going, and I just appreciate all of your support and hope that you enjoy this conversation with Lupi Asensio and Martin Lorenz. I think a good place to start is to talk about your studio first and talk about 2 Points, because I think you have a really interesting approach. I think you have an interesting process. I think the kind of work you do is really interesting. And so I'd love to just kind of start there and if you could kind of talk about what 2 Points is, what the studio is, kind of your mission for your work there.
I think Martin should explain, because before being a design studio, it was something else, and it was Martin thing. So I think Martin should start explaining what was 2 Point originally about.
Yeah. Okay. So that's that's a really long time ago. I mean, it's like 98, 99. It's when I got interested in the work process or the methodology in design, but also thinking long term how my professional life is going to be, how I could construct like the perfect work environment, and how could I work with others together and be inspired by them. So when I graduated at the Royal Academy of Arts in The Hague, this was my proposal. 2 Points was my proposal. It was like a platform. This was 2001. It was like a platform where creatives could meet and do projects together. And we had several ones. So I created, like, for example, there was one that was a Chinese whisper, but a visual Chinese whisper. I was uploading one image, and then someone else could download this image and change it and upload it again without explaining anything else. So at the end, you had like a visual conversation. And
the website I had a cover that was changing with different people that you were inviting, Martin.
Exactly. This was super exciting. I mean, that was like, I don't know. I still can remember that I thought it was kind of magical that I could send out an email to the designers and illustrators that I loved and that I saw in the books, and I just wrote them and told them, look, I have this platform. Would you like to design the cover for this website? So I had then every week another designer or illustrator designing a cover or even making an animation or programming something for it. Yeah. And that's like 2001. It's like It's totally different now, but back then it was like magical to send out an email and someone else on the other side of the world was then suddenly doing something together with you.
I think by the time they were not receiving so many emails as
right.
Yeah.
Nowadays. That's why they were answering too.
Yeah. So I have that's so interesting to me, and I have two questions kind of about that that may or may not be related. The first question is, you mentioned, Martin, that kind of when you were finishing school, you wanted to have some sort of way to work in a very specific way, or you had these ideas of the type of work you were interested in. And I would love for you to talk a little bit more about that. What did that look like to you, or what were those ideas that you were trying to do? And then the second part of the question is then, how did those ideas then turn into the studio the way it is now?
Well, I think that Lupi and me, even nowadays, I think what we try to do with every project that we work on is to learn something new as well, to create a space where we can experiment and actually never stop learning. So for us, this is it's also when we approach a design project, we think about the process and how we have to reinvent the process as well in order to come up with new solutions. And I think that this search in every project for something new is something that is in 2 points since the beginning, when it wasn't an applied design studio. I think what has changed is that the projects from 99 until 2007, they have been more like they weren't like professionally adapted in the sense of that someone were to use them. It was more like research projects.
They were not commissioned. There was no one asking for them.
Yeah.
It was just Martin wish to do something. And it's funny because even he was, after he graduated, he got a job offer by a really old bureau that he was really fan of. And we moved to Frankfurt because of this job. And it was a ideal job because it was really cool bureau with a lot of freedom. They were doing LP covers back in the time. Yeah. But it's still for Martin was not enough. So he started doing. We had a friend visiting, and then Martin say, let's make a book. He was staying over the weekend. He said, let's make a book, 48 hours, 48 pages, no computer. And from there came another project that is the One Weekend book series. And I was doing the production, was producing and manually folding with a machine on the school where I was studying in Germany. And photocopy, we did it like as cheap as it gets. We just did 50 copies of each in order to be able to make many. And the next one was Frankfurt again, One Weekend book series Frankfurt, because it was another friend visiting. And the third one was finally in another place. It was in Copenhagen because we were visiting a friend, but it was like the one. Martin was already a professional. I was still studying in Germany. I was doing a postgraduate, but it was still like a student project. We were going and crashing in friends' sofas, and then just going to the supermarket and compiling newspaper in order to have collage material. And this was really, really exciting, and for me as well like. It describes as well like the restless of Martin, that he's never not that he's insatisfied, but that he still thinks he has more to do, even if he has a really cool job and was able to do like a dream job for a designer. but he thought that he still have ways that he couldn't explore. So he invented the One Weekend book series that was finally printed, because before 2 Points projects were online.
I mean, then on the other hand as well, this is all, I mean, like for fun, in the way that, I mean, this is the way as well how I like to, I mean, we did our vacations like that. Now we're not doing them like this anymore, and we're doing proper vacations now. But it was also cool, I think, to mix then, even though we went to a place that we did not know, and we met people that we did not know. It was, I think, I mean, that was interesting to mix with the locals and do work on your vacation, because then you get a part of the real life that it's a different kind of tourism. I mean, for a time, the subtitle of the One Weekend Book series has been as well graphic tourism, because it was a different way of making a vacation experience in the places where you are. And I think big point about this whole project is not that really, I mean, now there's Instagram, and I'm uploading everything that we did there. And sometimes I think, wow, this illustration was really cool. But actually, it wasn't really about this illustration. It was more about the experience. And in each of the books, there's also an introduction, a written introduction, which explains the situation. And the situation itself sometimes has been much more interesting than the illustration.
I was curious about the One Weekend book series, but what I didn't realize is, and tell me if this is wrong, but kind of hearing you talk about it, I feel like it actually explains a lot about the way you run your studio today, at least from an outsider who's a fan of your work, in that often graphic design is kind of, it's taught that it should be invisible, that the role of the designer is to kind of like translate someone else's content into form. And what I really love about your work is that it really has like a clear point of view. It has a, it feels like you are bringing so much of yourselves into the work, that you do have so much fun in the process. And I think that comes out in how the work looks and how it functions. And then the fact that you also in a lot of cases are not just doing the visual design, but you are working in the editing and in the kind of publishing and in like other areas of the design process. And I'm curious, like, does that come from those kind of early projects where you were really interested in kind of that experience? Do you see that filtering into the kind of more client work that you're doing today? You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, that's really interesting that you're asking that question, because we were really trying hard, or at least me, is not to be visible in my design, because I was taught as well when I was first studying. First I studied 3 years in Germany, and then I moved to The Hague, where I followed studying at the Royal Academy, where I met Lupi then as well.
Okay.
And the invisible designer was like, that's the way how to make proper design, how to make good design. I mean, authorship in design was a movement that happened a bit later.
Right.
And we really also, or at least me, I try to be, like the one that realizes the message that our client has to send out to the world. But then I realized at some point as well that everything you do, or the vehicle or the communication tool that you're using, is a result of the process of the communication with your client, of your trajectory as well. You cannot hide who you are and what you do. And I actually think that just choosing 2 points is already part of the design process. So if you would be like, I don't know what kind of company, then you wouldn't call 2 points. If you're contacting 2 points, then, or I mean, at least from like looking at our clients, I think you also have to have fun with the process, and you have to be as well. You like to have an argument behind, or a reason why you're doing these things, and it's not just the aesthetics; it's the reason why you use these aesthetics. So yeah, I can't really say that what we are doing there is like us. I think it's more like us trying to do something functional, something that works for our clients. But I agree, or I have to admit that it's that you see us because it's us.
But for instance, I mean, I don't know, because it's a really interesting question. But we really try to do something different every time, and not using this. I mean, there's designers that always use same typeface or whatever, and we try to avoid this because we say that we make like a tailored design. So we are not like a big fashion firma that does many different models, but that we go and measure in the body of the person. And that's as well an important part of our job. We don't work with marketing departments. We work with the owners of the companies, because there's no filter in what the people, this company and this needs. If you get it from the essence, from someone who is the father or mother behind the baby, right? And sometimes the marketing department, they filter this information, and at the end it's communication is sensitive. So I always, we are both teachers. I think we can maybe go later on this.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about teaching.
I used to draw a pipe in the board and explain to students that the communication is really sensitive, and if you have direct contact, there's not gonna be leak of information. But if you put like different part of pipes together, from the from the accountant to the senior to the junior, blah blah blah. There's so much in all those joints. There's so much drops of information that can leak. That is, it is much more difficult to really get to do it properly. So what I know about this, we try not to have a style. We try, of course, we have some things that we like more or whatever, like everybody.
Neon colors.
Neon colors is really like...
You have great use of color, by the way.
I know.
That's Lupi's department.
Yeah, it's great.
And it's if you see how I wear, you understand it. I'm not afraid of color. You can put it that way.
Yeah.
So, but it's but we work. I mean, I think it's like Martin and me and Elio when we do a work with Elio. That's in Barcelona, but it's as well. We are really aware of that. We are not doing something for ourselves. That we are doing something for someone else. And we really work concept based. So we extract the essence of this, the core of the message, and we try to translate it, applying forms and colors and productions and grids and so on, typefaces.
I think that's a really good point, and I think that's, I didn't mean to say that all of your work looks the same, or that your style is somehow overpowering the content or the client in some way. Like, I think what you're saying is exactly right, in that all of your work is very different, and you don't have a style. You don't use the same typefaces. There are certain maybe gestures or processes that come up again and again, and maybe that's kind of what I'm drawn to, or what I'm trying to articulate, is that you are in the work in some way, even if the work doesn't all look the same. There is some sort of co-authorship that's happening, and maybe I'm just trying to figure out how you're doing that without that kind of consistent style.
I think it lays really in the methodology, and it is really concept driven. Right. So even when I teach my students, before they start the project, they have to write down which are the keywords. And then later I will go, there's like how you say notar in English, like someone who say, okay, this person entitles this person, this kind of official document.
Oh, yeah. Like a notary. Yeah.
Yeah, notary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I will go with this, and then later on in the process, when they come with some things, I would say, this is really nice, but let us go back to what you wrote. Okay, this doesn't reflect what you wrote, so it's really pretty, but you can use it because it was never the aim.
Right.
So because it's really easy, and we know this, it's really easy to get loose in the form and in the fascination by the form, and to get too excited about forms and color, but you have to go back to what is the aim of the communication, and this is really important, and I think it's like attention to detail is something that you can say that we don't look at the clock when we are doing a project, and and sometimes I think we are losing money, but doesn't matter.
I have something. Yeah. I have something to add about the process, because this is something really important that Lupi mentioned there, and I think that's as well something that relates to the question that you had before about the 1 week in book series, because in the 1 week in book series, the process has been mostly intuitive and emotionally responding to what the other illustrator or designer was doing. And the big difference between the 1 week in book series and the design work that we do is that we have we create or design different phases in the project. And the first phase is a very rational phase in which we make research about the market, the client, competitors, the message. We have to formulate a question, so we are able to answer that question, and that's a really rational process.
Right.
But then I think that's maybe the influence from the Dutch education that we got, is that we have first this rational phase, and then comes the intuitive phase, in which we experiment a lot. Like a lot of the what we did there at the Royal Academy was as well experimenting and just doing stuff and not knowing if this is going to end up in something that we can use. But anyway, you need this phase to try new things in order to come up with something that is surprising. Because if you do not have this phase, then you're going to end up always with the easiest solution and the first solution that you get. But then at the end, after that intuitive phase, then you have again that rational phase that Lupi was talking about. You have to go back to your initial phase and ask yourself, is this the answer to your question, or or it's not? And then I think that's the crucial part of the project, and either you can use it or you can't use it. But we always we ask ourselves this.
Can we talk a little bit more about that process and maybe start to connect that to your teaching work? Because that is something that I wanted to talk to you about also, and I have a series of questions around teaching that we could kind of go into. But maybe let's just start with how you both started teaching. And it seems like teaching and education is such a big part of what you do and how you think about your work. So how did that kind of come into this?
So now I have to be the one who talks more. Because I'm the one who always wanted to be teacher.
Oh, interesting.
I study in, the point is, not always like since I was small. When I was little, I wanted to be like singer and actress and police woman, because I was watching Charlie Angels and all that kind of things that were not really coming together. The point is, I study in art with a specialty design in the University of Barcelona. And then I did Erasmus because in my university we have like photo and sculpture and painting and even in the specialty of design we have both graphic and industrial. It depends what the teacher was. We will get industrial design too. So I wanted to be just graphic, focus just in graphic design, because I realized I was really good in concept, but I was not really good formally. So I went to make an Erasmus. That is like a European program where you can exchange one semester, or and you can come back to your uni, and they will how you call this, convalidate. The subjects that you did in the foreign university, you don't have to do again.
Oh, right.
So so the credits, not the subjects, because they could be different. And there I meet Martin, and they are it was totally, for me, it was like a shock. All these guys were designing, because in Spain we have like a really we are afraid to do something ugly. And I think and we are not really good formally as well, various reasons, but we have a dictature, and we have some years there that are lost in culture, where we didn't really advance at the same pace that the rest of Europe, particularly the north, but as well the Italians were really good as well, especially in industrial. So I was going to Holland, and I was like, oh my God, because they were not afraid of making something, may I say, shitty?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. They were not afraid of doing something shitty, and sometimes they were doing such a shitty things, but so interesting as well. I mean, they were so ugly that they strike you,
right?
Because they were new. And then, it was like losing your virginity there, like, okay, I don't have to be afraid anymore,
Right.
And I think this was really, and then when Martin got a job in Germany, it was 2 people in the class that were really good in typography, and this was Martin and another girl from the same university as Martin. So when Martin got the chance to get a job in Frankfurt, I thought I want to study in the same university with the same teacher. And I had the luck. She was a Canadian, so she would speak with me in English because I didn't know German. And then I did typography, Swiss typography, because she studied in Basel with her in the same school where Martin was the teacher of teacher of Martin too, with Sandra Hoffman. And then later I wanted to stay there, but this was like before in Germany you have like a technical school and high school. Like 2 kind of universities. For instance, in architecture you could do like something more technical or something more advanced, right? And then the school where I was going was technical, so they won't have postgraduate in this university, and I did. I stayed 2 semesters, but I couldn't stay more as a guest student. And they will tell me I have to go from the beginning and matriculate myself in the first class. Right. And I already did 6 years in art, and I was like, come on, some of the things I could teach them, And then I moved to another university in Germany, where I studied as well typography. And then I did the point is I did a postgraduate in visual communication as well, because in Spain at the time I studied, you just was collecting like credits, and then the moment you have 330 credits, you were finished. And in Germany or in Holland, I suppose other countries too, but I visited these 2, they really have a project where they could focus 1 semester just in one thing, not doing different theory and other parallel. So I wanted to do just one project, but at the end I end up doing more parallel things because I have free time. But initially I wanted to do a postgraduate. I did a postgraduate in a German university in Offenbach about synesthesia. That is, I was trying to see if there's like a common ground. You know what is synesthetic people? People that smell flavors and hear colors and So I did something like this. Then I did a project where I tried to translate pictures and smells and textures and sounds. And I have the help of a perfume firma in Barcelona and a pianist that will give me the examples for the music part. and I did the visual and the texture. And then, and parallel, because I have so much free time, I start studying cinema, because it was like really, this university was like the opposite of the other German university that I had before, like where everything was really like German, regional. And this one was like a hippie mess, they call it learn by doing, because the teachers were not really teaching. So, but the people will go there and they will help each other. And you could get a 8mm camera over the weekend and do your short film and give it back. So it was really cool. And then after all this experience, like in Holland, it was really amazing, but they were missing a lot of theory. And I realized how important theory was and how happy I was that I did 4 years of art history, and I did 2 years of aesthetics, and 1 year of design theory. And I realized that I studied in 4 universities, and I realized no one was perfect. There was how you call it, frame to improve,
yeah.
to improve, but there were good things in every one of them. So I feel like, okay, now that I have this knowledge, I really could teach what I think is better.
Oh, interesting.
Because, at the end, I ended up studying 9 years.
Oh, jeez.
I was the oldest ever in my classroom, always. So I have this teacher of typography in the second university, and then I went there and tell her what I have to do to be teacher, and she say, no, he will say, you have to be famous. And I say, what? I was such a downer, because I thought, okay, if you tell me you have to be good, I can work on this, but famous,
Yeah, that's weird.
It sounds really banal to me, and of course, you're going to be famous if you have your own bureau with your own surname, but not everybody gets his own bureau. At the end, we end up having one, but I didn't know at the time. So I find it really strange. And that's Martin as well arrived at that moment, top of capabilities or in the bureau where he was working. And that's where we decided to, in 2005, go back to Barcelona so I could be teacher there, where I did to be famous. and then in October 2005, we moved to Barcelona. I start teaching straight away, and then Martin start teaching 1 semester, and then I will teach in the same postgraduate as Martin. They offered me to be academic director. This means I could do a master, and this is for me what is interesting, because of course you're a teacher, you do this part and this, but after my experience, and I teach now in some German universities as well, like everybody do his shit, but there's no really common ground.
Right.
Without the name of the subject that is so big that you can teach nearly anything. So what I was interested in, to make like a study plan where everything was connected. And I have this thing that the person that was coordinating the master before I stepped in told me, you have to leave always 2 weeks afterwards, because if one teacher fails, then you can catch up and say, no, but if one teacher fails, I don't need him, because I need that he comes this week. So because next week I'm going to explain something that they need this knowledge. Right. So it doesn't work for me this way, because everything was connected. And I think, I don't know, we have great ex-students out of this, and really good professional, and they're really happy, because as well, we will have communication in between teachers, that one teacher know what the other teacher is doing. So we can refer to, because Martin is explaining you this, or Jesus is explaining you this, and this, I think this it should be the normal, but the students were like, oh, wow, these people talk to each other, actually.
Yeah.
And I think this was like a really good experience. And And in this 2007, when I got to direct a master, I asked Martin to teach visual systems because no one in the whole Europe was teaching visual system as such. And Martin was reluctant because he can explain his whole family are teachers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like I enjoy teaching a lot, and I also see that it's something that I can do well. But it's just because everyone in my family is a teacher.
Oh, that's
I just
funny.
thought that this would be the most boring thing to do for me to teach it as well.
Yeah.
So I was really reluctant, but it's. But I think Lupi is right. I think it's also it complements well as well the other work that we do, because in some lectures we were talking about our pillars, like what's our basic definition, or how we define, or how we would like to work and live, and it's learn, teach, and apply, and it's
I like that.
it's one circle, and it's all part of the lifelong learning and teaching and applying. And I think I think our biggest joy as well comes from learning new things, and then also rationalizing about what we learned, and then teach others about what we learned.
Of course, visual system is something that is more new, but in the way that we teach is very different. In the way that we don't believe in teaching app design or web design or this, but we think that you should have like a general background of knowledge, like typography. And Martin never did, we never did editorial design as such, but we did really good typography, and we learned to do projects, and then an editorial project is a typography project. So, but now it's like really very segmented, this and this and this, and it's like, and then you lose completely the overview and the interconnections, and in this way we are old school teaching in the way that we think about the profile of Martin put it down like the 60s designers, where they can do everything,
right?
And they will think they have this holistic view and not thinking about of course later every media has his pros and contras, and colors and production and stuff is not the same on screen or printed, or it depends how you print even. But but this is something that is that you can learn as well. But to learn how to think is the most difficult. And the most, sometimes they don't teach really this.
I agree. I feel like in that answer, I have like so many questions that I could kind of pull out of that to kind of go deeper on. But something that I do kind of want to ask you about a bit is that kind of intersection, or the relationship between the teaching and the studio, and that kind of complete circle, and that kind of lifelong learning is something that I'm really interested in. And I think that's why I like teaching so much also, is that it allows me to kind of keep learning new things. I'm curious how the relationship between, if you could talk more about the relationship between kind of things that you're teaching and how that maybe filters back into your studio work or your client work, or vice versa, how the work you're doing in the studio is kind of filtering in or influencing how you think about teaching.
What we need is all these three pillars: the research, the application of, and then the teaching, because each one of these pillars, so to say, has helps us as well in our trajectory. I mean, we need to make research to find out what's new, or how the world is changing. How do we have to change in order to create or produce something relevant or to produce something that works for our clients. But in the research, I mean, we both did a master degree as well, and I did a PhD on flexible visual systems and visual identities, and something that is maybe just like a day-to-day research when you just look around what other people are doing, or if you're doing a book, for example. We're doing a lot of books as well. This just gets to a totally different level if you're doing a PhD or a master degree, and you start researching as well about the past and the present, and you're trying to understand what happened there, and you try to connect much more different points of it. And then I think that it's really important as well for us then to apply that, because I remember that at the university where I was doing the PhD, that I sometimes felt like the worst researcher at this university. In the sense that I did not have like the time that they had, and they had much more time to spend on their research. So technically, I think their work that has been better. But on the other hand, they researched about such stupid subjects and such stupid things that and intuitively knew, because I was a designer working as well as a designer, and not just researching about design. I knew intuitively what makes sense to research about and what doesn't make sense to research about. And it sometimes can become like a nonsensical project of research. If it's not going to be adapted to something practical, at least in design. I think that in design, I mean, in other fields it's different, but I think at the end it should be even the research should have a practical sense. And then as well, like developing different it helps then as well when you have to break this down for your student and explain what you researched, because with your research you're becoming like a super nerd about a subject, and nobody else understands you, or like 5 people in the world or 10 people or 20 understand what you're talking about, but no one else. And this is also not really useful. So then breaking it down for your students and finding a way how to explain it to them, I find as well really helpful. And I don't remember who said that, but I think I read this somewhere, that someone said that if you cannot explain this to your theory to a child, then your theory probably is wrong.
What I wanted to mention is that, he didn't have much time, and this is important, and this is, he was missing the tools, because we know how visual communication works, but we don't such a control over the words. We have control over the image. Our message, they go on an image. They don't go on words. So he was much slower than other people, whatever subjects they might have, because most of them, they came from theory and from art history or things like that. And then this, of course, it will slow down he took longer maybe than other people, but as well was interesting that for once of not so often happen, a designer was talking about design, because otherwise you have to wait 20 or more years after the thing had happened, so that someone from history comes and have an overview, and then he was doing flexible visual identities and researching about flexible visual identities. And it's really good as well to go back and to what the others are doing, and not looking at what the others are doing, like watching blogs to see how cool things, but really learning how the process and and the systems behind, and analytical, because of course research has to be really methodological, and you have to justify every move. So this was really difficult, but that's why it was more special.
Yeah.
Because it was a practicing designer doing a PhD, and now he's breaking down the nerderies of the PhD into a book.
Oh, nice.
That is gonna take as well really long, because he's still teaching and designing and parenting.
Yeah.
But this was about teaching and how we do it with this. And for me, it's as well really interesting about teaching how I communicate with the students, because I used to I use a lot of metaphors with the students, and I realized cinema is not something that I can use much nowadays. Series I can use. But because I even open a Facebook group that I live here, and if someone of your listeners want to, it is a hidden and it's private, so I just accept invitations of people who.
Right.
Just for students, I make a Facebook groups of inspiration, and I just would put there things that are really interesting, because they are they are internet native, but they don't have culture, and there's so much there. So I post there things interesting about painting, architecture, music, art, whatever, video clips, and but back then, even in 2005, I remember in the first school where I was teaching typography, that they offer us to the teachers, they told us there's something in particular. The school can pay someone that teach you something, like how you call this upgrade, or something that you need to learn,
right,
for the teachers. And then someone say, well, it was a bit old teacher say, I will let you know this about PDFs and how to do them, and
Yeah.
And then I said, what I'm interested in is to invite a psychopedagogue and to understand how I communicate with these people. Because I see myself buying a PlayStation in order to really.
Right. I know what you mean.
I need image to communicate with these people, And if we don't see the same people and we don't consume the same people, I don't know how to, So, for instance, I have, for visual communication, I have I have a PDF with, I have one about video clips that starts with aha, so so that they can see that even when there was not nearly no computers, you can see things cool and innovative. And then I see which is of course I put the director and the designer and everything there. But nowadays, of course, I have all the Michel Gondry and Chris Cunningham and stuff. But I have another one with credits of movies.
Oh yeah.
And I have, of course, All Soul Bass 60.
Right. Yep.
And then lately, the last one that I'm adding are all these series, Game of Thrones, True Detective. They know, they are more into series now. So I find this a way to find, conversation.
You're exactly right. This is my experience teaching also, and it really surprised me when I first started teaching, because I didn't think I was that much older than them, but all of my references and things that inspired me just they didn't get it, because they were interested in television series or YouTube channels or video games, all things that I had kind of missed. I think that's I know I know exactly what you're talking about. And it kind of leads in, I have two more questions, and these are two questions that I kind of end all of these interviews with. And you started to touch on this first one a little bit, both with what you were just talking about, and then Martin with your flexible identity research. I'm kind of curious, what are the topics that you're thinking about right now, or what are things that you're kind of currently researching or investigating, or what are the things you're kind of learning about right now?
Yeah, I mean, Lupi already mentioned the book about flexible visual systems. It's more going to be about systems in general, but in particular about the application and flexible visual identities. And it's not just going to be about how they work and where they come from and how you could how you could categorize them, but it's going to be a really hands-on guide as well, how to develop flexible visual identities.
Oh, interesting.
And I think that's a book that is not out there yet.
Yeah.
But it's something that I think designers of today have to think about. It's not going to be, you can't really separate the printed typography from the kinetic typography from the responsive typography. It's all going to be one, Yeah. And I think it's just going to be the system is going to be the same, but the application or what you generate out of the system is going to be different. We still have different communication channels that have different characteristics. And our system has to be responsive to them. But in order to have coherent communication, we need the system. And in order to be able to build one of these, I'm going to use a model that I developed in my PhD, but I'm going to explain it and apply it so everybody understands as well how this is going to work. Because also something that I recognized, I already recognized this at the different design schools we were teaching at, but I still see that as well in nowadays publications and blogs and everything, that there still has to happen a sort of mind shift away from the talking and thinking about logos. Like I don't understand it when people get really worked about logos, when they say, this new logo of this company is so bad, but it's you just don't have the criteria. You can't decide if this is bad or not, because this is just one frame of a long movie. It's just one piece of an entire system. So you have to see the whole thing to be able to judge if this is good or bad. And well, related to that, that's the book that's like I won't say that's my life work, because I hope to live a bit longer and I hope to do other stuff afterwards. But this is going to be a really important book for me. But we are also doing another one, which is going to be exciting as well, about variable typography.
Oh, interesting.
For Wiktionary, and we did interviews as well for this book with Feixen, with Felix Pfeffli from Feixen, and with Mitch from Dia. And then we start with variable fonts, but then we recognized as well that actually there could have been as well a book about flexible visual identities, and that is much more interesting as well, not just to talk about variable fonts, but to talk about responsive typography, to talk about kinetic typography, and get an overview about what is happening actually in design, and in particular in typography. And that's something really interesting that we are working right now on. It's, I think it's just going to take a couple or more weeks, and hopefully it's going to be out already in autumn.
Oh, nice.
My interest is a novel I'm writing since 2014.
Okay.
And you can edit this if you want, because it's kind of personal, but I like to mention.
Okay.
We have been in 2013 a really, really bad client, and I have a burnout, and I end up in the hospital, and I got brain surgery.
Oh, wow.
So this is about telling people, if you have a client that sucks, get rid of him, because it's not worth it, your time and your health.
Right.
Another one is coming. Of course, everybody knows everybody has to pay the rent, but you have to watch your limits and you have to listen to your body because sometimes it's too much. And you have to learn from this as well. It's not worth it. No client, no project is worth it. Your health. So afterwards, I inscribed myself in a writing course in Barcelona. Now I follow online because I have the luck that they have online courses. And it was funny that the first day we have to introduce ourselves, our name, what we were for profession, and why we were there. Many of the people in my group and in the school in general were people that already, how you call it, rented people, people. I'll call this, Martin, how you say this, like old people that don't work anymore.
Oh, retired people.
Retired.
Yeah, rented. I mixed German and Spanish and English.
No, it's okay.
Rented people is a nice concept as well.
Rented people is something different. So many people were retired there, and they have plenty of time, of course. And then I was the last to introduce myself, and I said, I actually don't have time to be here. And I always thought I will do this when I'm older because I really like reading. But I was so short about not to get old that I'd rather do it now. And it is dystopic novel, and then I'm reflecting a lot about society, and because actually it's a dystopic novel where I basically talks about the present, how there are some people that live, have technology and everything, other people have nothing, and and other people are trying to combine something like being aware of the planet, but not going back to the cave.
Right.
Still have some. So this is my passion, and I'm reading a lot as well, and then I really proud because I was doing this long time ago, but I'm doing I just did editorial course in one university, and then they will do. They did. First, I give them tales that they couldn't choose. And then I gave them classical, like the structures of Graham Greene and The Swimmer of John Cheever, some others, and they will love it. And and then later they will do a book, and they could choose the book. But if they didn't come with idea, they will tell me what they like, and I will suggest a book. And then I have this girl coming to me because I recommend her Fahrenheit 451, coming to me so thrilled that she discovered Fahrenheit 451 and asking me if I can recommend her more books of this kind of. And then, of course, I recommend her 1984 and then those, the one of Blade Runner. And, and I'm as well really proud that I can teach those generations because they are not even millennials anymore. Some things of the past that are still useful, and of course this is newer, the Handmaid's Tale. But it's, I'm really really happy about that what I'm really happy, and this is something that is common into Martin and my teacher. And because you asked before with 2 points, we don't show 2 points work. We don't want to be like the students be like us.
Right.
I just showed 2 points work when it's like printing mistakes or printing things and explain why this happened or why this. When I explain like something like backstage of production, then I will bring some of our things. But I'm really happy. I'm really proud when they do things that I will never do myself. That's really cool because they are finding their path, and this is what it's about, I love that. And you started answering my last question actually, because
I always like to end these with some recommendations of your favorite books or authors or kind of people that have really kind of influenced both of you. And you started giving a list, but are there other people or writers or books that have you find yourself turning to again and again?
I have to recommend really. I mean, what I really onto is like sci-fi, because my novel is as well about this. But I have to recommend something, and then Martin will agree with me, that is really great. And it is this book that is one of the best books I ever had. And in the German edition, because I giving this as a gift a lot in German to German people. And it was something that I found in a flea market for free. I mean, it was like a public libraries that sometimes they get rid of books.
Yeah.
So for €3, and so the author is Jorge Volpi. It is a Mexican. He is alive.
Okay.
And this the particular book is called. I have to look for the translation in English, because In Search of Cleanser. But it's crazy. He's talking. He's a detective story, but he's talking. It is in the 50s and after the Second World War. He's talking about mathematics and about Einstein but everything like really like for not scientific,
Right.
So you learn, and I love novels where you learn something else, or books where you discover another books.
Right.
Or
Right.
things
Yeah.
this. Like can go on the knowledge and spread the culture.
Yeah, I love that. Martin, what about you? Do you have any to add?
Well, right now I mean, Lupi is my is giving me a lot of recommendations, because she's reading a lot.
Yeah.
More than I would like to. So she and she already, I mean, she buys them for me. So I have like piles of books that I have to read. But right now I'm reading The Artificial Ape, and
I don't know this one.
And it's really good.
I love that book because it's well, he's talking about how much
paleontologist guy.
Yes.
Guy that
exactly.
looks for bones.
Yeah.
And he's questioning the evolution theory of Darwin, and the theory that our brains grew because our brains were getting bigger, we were able to create better tools. And it's about actually the how you call this, the evolution centrism, that you think that you're the center of the evolution and you measure the world around you by your criteria.
Right.
But he's then arguing that, for example, the Tasmanian Aborigines, who were seen as the tribe with the race with the lowest evolution, that it's that this actually makes no sense, because just because they do not build houses and do not know how to make fire does not mean that they are less evolved.
Right.
I mean, we nowadays do not know. I mean, in theory, we know how to make fire, but if we really try to make a fire, we probably won't succeed. So, that's a really interesting one. And one recommendation that I could give to everyone, every age, and a book or books that I'm reading,
of course,
read 1,000 times, is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy from Douglas Adams.
I haven't read this yet for some reason.
You have to read it.
I just love every sentence. It's just like such a pleasure. It's like, I don't know, something like a delicious dish that you're eating really slowly. It's
hilarious, but it has a lot of philosophical background,
Yeah.
So it's really funny, but it sets very important questions.
Yeah, it's one of those books that it's like I'm embarrassed that I haven't read it, because it's just I know about it. I've seen it around. Everyone tells me to read it, and I just haven't gotten to it yet.
But you're going to have so much fun. It's not like Proust or something. It's like, people say you should read it, but you think like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm in the mood. You're in the mood for sure for Douglas Adams.
Yeah, you really have to read it. It's
Okay.
so funny. It's like really his kind of humor as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like he writes, nothing was happening. 1 minute later, still nothing was happening, and it's just going on like that.
Yeah.
It's just.
And it's really, really hilarious book.
All right.
Really, it's really good.
Yeah,
You love it.
I'm adding it to the list right now. This was so great. I really enjoyed this conversation. Like I said, I'm a big fan of your work, and it was great to kind of just talk to you about how you think about all of these things. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
This episode was recorded on August 9th, 2018. Our theme music is by Andy Borgasani. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Surface Podcast. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts and at scratchingthesurface.fm. Thanks for listening.